Promises. Most people think they own their own assets. Brandon Gentile here. This is a very, very important article, so please, it's only a few minutes long. Please read through to the end, watch it through the end. This is very, very important because we're at the end of a monetary cycle and end of a monetary regime change. The US dollar is world reserve asset. Things are going to change greatly in the world, and you have to be protected for what is going to happen going forward. Not saying this is going to play out 100%, but the chances of life is all about probabilities. And the probabilities of this happening, things like this happening, bad things happening, people having their assets stolen from the unproductive class are increasing daily. As you see the Bank of England, the pound sterling collapsing, all these things are continuing to happen. Countries, Sri Lanka, the Canadian truckers, Ukraine war, the Dutch farmers, all these things continually happen faster and faster and faster and faster. You have to be prepared. This is insurance buying time. This is why this is so important. And again, at least if you understand this, you know the risks that are associated with the investments you are making. A definition of a promise, a declaration or insurance that one will do a particular thing or that a particular thing will happen. Again, you have U.S. entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these entitlements that have to be paid out. They're off balance sheet. Meaning that they're promises. The government says, we're going to give you these things later on in life. Well, will they? They will. They will. But it will be at a devalued currency. They'll keep printing the currency to pay you out, which means your life will be 1,000x more expensive. But you'll still get the $2,000 a month. Not going to really buy anything. A loaf of bread will cost $100 a month, but you'll still get your $2,000 a month. This is why this is so important. Promise. Insurance company promising they're going to pay you out at the end of the day. How do you know they will pay you out? Do you know that for sure? Can you say without a shadow of a doubt that they will pay you out? We've seen promises being broken everywhere across the spectrum, and this will continue to speed up and happen even more as people cannot and will not. We see crypto exchanges blowing up. And again, the crypto exchanges and the stable coins, all these things are blowing up. That's different than an insurance company, right? And that's different than a pension company from GM. These are all different things, right? But you have to assess your risk, your counterparty risk. Again, most think they own their own assets. Most think they do. Counterparty risk is the biggest term people need to know in this day and age when we are getting closer to the end of the monetary system and nearing a reset. Please read that sentence again. That is so important. Counterparty risk is a probability that the other party in an investment or promise, credit, or trading transaction may not fulfill its part of the deal and may default on the contractual obligations. So many people that you talk to say, well, they promised me this. They promised my pension. They promised my Social Security. They promised my whatever, you name it. No, the insurance company promised me this thing. We all know how much you have to fight with people to get an insurance claim done or whatever it is, right? So there's so many things that people just think they're promised and they're owed. That's why we call them entitlements. When in reality, these people, just the very fact that you going to a bank and giving them your currency, now it's not yours anymore. Legally, by definition, it's not yours. They can go do whatever they want with it. And now you have people in Lebanon or China, the banks rolling in to protect the banks, tanks rolling in to protect the banks, and people going in to rob the bank to get their own money back. In the Middle East, this is going to happen more and more and more. And so many people, again, this was me 10, 15 years ago, want to just kind of turn a blind eye and oh, that's fine. I don't know what's going on. I was focused more on politics then. I didn't even think about money 15 years ago when I was in high school and in college. And then the 08 financial crisis happened, 08, 09, and you see the people leaving Wall Street firms with the boxes in their hands. I realized then there's bailouts going on. We weren't even at $1 trillion yet. It was $700-800 billion, TARP and all that. And you just thought, wow. I remember sitting at Michigan State University thinking there's a game being played and someone's winning and there's a lot of people losing. I'm going to figure this game out. And that's what the last 12, 14 years have been for me, figuring this game out, investing on my own, creating my own family office. And it's not a massive family office, but it will be someday because I've made it my mission to do this, become free in all ways, whether it's financially, my family, making decisions for myself, living on my own terms, free of on the way towards food, energy, things like that, and we'll do these things and document this journey as we go on. Because I really, as you see this process play out and these resets play out, those people that are not dependent on the system are the ones that do the best. The people that are the most dependent in thinking that they're just owed things and promised things, when those promises, how are they going to fulfill these promises? All these promises that have been made, we know that's not going to happen. Deep down, we know. Human beings, for some reason, we like to just put our head in the sand and believe that things are just going to turn out for the best. And if I just put my head down and not think about it, then it'll just turn out okay. Again, counterparty risk, that's the term of the decade. That's the term of the coming years here. what kind of counterparty risk do your assets have? And this is just a basic timeline of monetary systems of what's been happening. Really, it's sped up, obviously, and we've had a lot of monetary systems just over the last couple hundred years. So you can see just the grand scale here, but just in the last 100 years, we've had gold standard, then Bretton Woods, and then we had these pseudo gold standards and different reserves of that. Then we had Bretton Woods 1, Bretton Woods system, obviously 1944 there, and then 71 we have Bretton Woods 2 as we went on fiat, just the fiat currency standard, the U.S. dollar standard, and now we're transitioning to a commodity-backed monetary reset. And Bitcoin will naturally be the apex predator, I believe, that takes over all of that. And people think it's going to be gold and oil and all these things. And it could be a basket of things. I mean, the world, the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, all these alphabet soup agencies might have their own hand in all that, the SDRs, the special drawing rights, and try to do their own thing. But because of the will of the people and the nature of Bitcoin, the properties it has, that's why I believe, and that contingent grows that believes, oh my goodness, once you get to that point of study in Bitcoin, you realize, wow, this is going to take over everything. And that's why you see here, again, monetary reset regime change here is coming. And we've already seen it, like I said, with Bretton Woods 3, and as Max Geiser and Stacey Herbert talking about, February 2022, the U.S. froze the Russian assets, their dollar assets, and they basically signified the transition to that next monetary standard, where if you can't even control your dollars, and then on the individual level, the banks show that, and the Canadian truckers, the Dutch farmers, taking people out of the system, freezing their livelihoods, and then we did it on the sovereign level, again, the U.S. doing it to Russia. So the dollar is not safe, so why would I hold the dollar? So now it becomes Bitcoin is that easy choice. It's the easy answer. Do you have your stocks? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you have your stocks in your house? Can you put your hands on your stocks in your house? Do you have custody of them? Do you actually control them? Do you have the insurance? The car insurance, the health insurance, the life insurance, the auto insurance, the home insurance. Do you have that in your house? Can you guarantee that you will get paid what you need to be paid if something were to happen? Do you pay the property tax on your home, rental properties and apartments? Do you actually own that and actually have custody? Or are you paying the government entity property taxes? Or are you paying a bank a mortgage? Do you follow all the red tape and regulations for your business if you own a business? Do you pay your withholding tax if you have a job? Do you have your arms, your security in your possession? Do you have your gold and silver outside of safety deposit boxes? Do you have your Bitcoin off of exchanges? Those are all questions that need to be asked. Because if you have your Bitcoin on exchanges, then it's not yours. It's not a bearer instrument at that point. None of these things, in my opinion, are bearer instruments. None of these assets, if you are holding these things, you have to understand the risk that you have when holding these assets. There's different levels of risk here, and that has to be understood. And I believe there's many people that just kind of blanket and say, well, I own this thing, I see it digitally on my phone, and I've got it. So it's a thought experiment I want everyone to run. This is something I'm constantly doing myself. Do you think there's a chance that any of these assets that involve counterparty risk above could be taken from you? Any risk at all? And again, life is all about probabilities. Could the companies that hold your assets or hold your promise go bankrupt? Go get taken over by the government? Get in bed with the government? Be coerced or forced to do something against their will by a government? Public-private partnerships, just getting bought out, whether it's Boeing or GM or all these companies, and now they're in bed with the government. We saw this in the 1930s in Germany. It's the same process playing out over again. I bet most Canadians didn't believe their government would have done this much. If you asked them at their New Year's party, their 2022 New Year's party, when everyone's having fun, I bet no one could have believed that what would have transpired in the next few months would have happened. And again, how'd that turn out? Banks freeze millions in convoy funds under Trudeau edict. And I want to make a quick note here that Bitcoin is the only thing around this. Most people just lump Bitcoin into this, this news here that people, they froze Bitcoin, they froze everything. No, they didn't. They didn't freeze Bitcoin. You can't freeze Bitcoin. So if you're on exchanges, then yes, they could freeze it. So if you're on Coinbase or on these exchanges that can be controlled by the government, but this is mainly bank accounts. So they Chase, whatever it was, Royal Bank of Canada, Bank of Montreal, whatever it is, people have these accounts. A bank account, that's not your money. That's not your currency. So they just froze those instantly. They just changed the rules. They didn't vote on anything. They just changed them overnight. They didn't like what you did. They didn't like what you said. They didn't like what you donated to. Gone. So Bitcoin is the only thing out of here. Using things like Tallycoin, using these other peer-to-peer exchanges, using things that they could transact because they had the Bitcoin on their own custodial wallets and they had an internet connection. That's how you take sovereignty of your money and take sovereignty of your life. Too big to fail. What happens when insurance companies or normal companies go bankrupt, or pensions, or 401ks, or Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid? What happens when they all go bankrupt? Because they're all scheduled, slated to go bankrupt in the next 5 to 15 years, we'll say, just depending on what you look at. Bail-ins. This is what I believe will happen. These two things, bail-ins, like happened in Cyprus already, and they practiced it there to see the unproductive class did it there to see what would happen, and really no one really did anything because they can't defend themselves there, unfortunately, in Cyprus. So they put laws here in the U.S. I believe it was Dodd-Frank, and I have to look to see what it was, but they did that here. These are things that the banks can do here, and they literally are taking your assets right out of your bank account, scooping their hands into your bank account and skimming whatever amount they want off of their accounts, their depositors, to pay back the creditors. So, and again, if you want to read more about the Cypriot financial crisis here, there's a Wikipedia, a little link to that. And then a bail-in again is just them skimming the money right out of your bank account. They didn't ask you; they're just coming in taking it because it's not yours. When you put it in a bank, it's not yours. But when you hold Bitcoin in your own vault, in your own, with your private key in cold storage, that's yours. It's your vault. No one can do anything about that. That cannot be said anywhere else. Bailouts are government stealing your time, your energy, now your wealth by printing currency to bail out insolvent companies, to pay off their balances, pay off their liabilities or promises to the people. Don't worry, you will get what you are owed, like I said earlier, but life all around you will be 100x more inflationary. So you'll get your $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, or whatever you're owed, but now a loaf of bread will cost $50, $500, whatever it is. And again, if you don't believe that can happen, go look at Zimbabwe. Go look at every country around the world that's had inflationary problems. I mean, Argentina's reset their currency like 5 times in the last 20, 30 years. So this is continually happening more and more and more as we go further down this fiat road. Life will get extremely painful for many who are not in hard assets and who don't have bearer instruments. They don't actually own, and they just have a piece of paper saying they own something. And again, the currency printer will go burr and destroy everyone to pay off the entitlement promises. They will do this. They've told us, IMF, old Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke told us financial repression. They'll debase the currency. They're going to continue printing, hold the rates, and they're going to yield curve control. They're going to do everything they can to rebalance their own debts at the behest of themselves and bailing themselves out. And everyone's going to lose. Bondholders, everyone will lose. Real estate, stocks, you will lose. You might potentially, being in real estate or some of these assets, you might skate by and just be even, like what's happened the last 10 or 12 years. Bitcoin is the only thing that has shown over the last 10, 12 years of this massive, massive currency printing to actually go up and destroy every other asset. So again, we have to talk about price. I say price is the least interesting aspect because it's a bearer instrument, all these properties we talked about. But we still have to talk about price, obviously, because that's what gets people in the door, to get them interested and piques their interest to say, oh my goodness, what's going on here? So again, we lose both ways. Bail-ins or bailouts, we lose both ways, big time. And that's happening. Bailouts have already happened. Bail-ins have happened across the world. Bailouts have happened. And don't be surprised that happens here. It might be a little tougher here in America because people have armament here, so it might be a little tougher. People might get a little more ticked off. But again, they just locked people in their homes for the last 2-3 years. So what do you think's off the table here? And that's, again, this life of probabilities. We have to see which way life is going. This is 10 years ago. I remember thinking, they're going to cancel student loan debts. And then here we are 10 years later, they're canceling student loan debts, because reading the tea leaves is very, very important. And I've been thinking a lot about my structure, my frameworks, the way I look at things. And in those patterns you see, reading history obviously, but like just the patterns you see of which way society is going, which way governments are going, are so incredibly important to understanding which way life is going. As Jim Rogers says, you have to understand history and philosophy. If you don't learn those things, you're going to have a very hard time investing and taking care of yourself. So how do you defend from all these attack vectors? Diamonds, gold, silver, oil, gas, uranium, timber, these are all bearer instruments. These are all primary assets. They're not tertiary. They're not derivatives of something else. They're not pieces of paper of an actual thing, an IOU. They're actual things. I can hold those things in my hand. Again, these are all no counterparty risk. Problem is, you can't send any of these assets around the world in an instant and settle anything. And many of them, it would be hard to actually hold it yourself, like uranium, for instance, or a lot of timber. This is why fiat IOUs, fiat currencies, were born, a piece of paper, because it was easy to digitally transfer all over the world, whether digitally or you could hold the piece of paper and travel easily around the world physically and travel with them. It was very easy. However, here are the long-term consequences of fiat IOUs. And this is just from this past week. Not an oil not a meme stock, not a meme stock, not a shit coin. It's the Great British Pound against the dollar. This is what happens with all fiat currencies. This is just relative to the dollar, but the dollar has been doing this as well over the last 100 years. And we've shown the charts over and over and over again. The dollars continue to go down. So imagine how much these are going down when the dollar is already going down a ton, but these are going down. Again, we printed 40% of our currency just in the last 3 years. So again, imagine what those charts look like. The value of that dollar just continually being destroyed. Bitcoin is the only bearer instrument I have found that takes power from the unproductive class and puts it all back in the people's hands. The only thing that is decentralized and out of the hands of every bad actor, and there's nothing they can do about it. Again, it incentivizes good behavior. It incentivizes peace. It incentivizes good governance, good law. I've been looking for years, and it is one thing that I've discovered with the literal intention of giving power back to the people. Again, we've showed the Genesis block. It was built for these times and put together and then discovered for these times. My question to you is, have you studied it and put in the time to understand this first time in human history event? I believe all of our children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren will ask us what it was like to be around when Bitcoin was discovered. They will ask, wow, you were, great-grandfather was born, he was alive during that time, that gave us this freedom, this prosperity. What was that like? What was this war like? What was that cultural war like? What was it like when humans discovered the answer that humans have been trying to solve for thousands of years? The Byzantine general's problem. Rules without rulers. Trustless, permissionless. You don't need to trust a third party. That is what we are looking at. That is a revolution. That is the future. Stay strong. Please, if you like this, please like and subscribe to our channel. It obviously helps what we do here, helps get the word out and spread freedom and prosperity for everybody. And if you don't like it, dislike it, please let us know what you like. We'd like to see how we can better provide more education and entertainment for you and what you would like to see. Maybe some things you would like to see in there as well. And please comment. Any questions, comments on this, anything that was intriguing or sparked something in your mind, please put it below and we'll get to it. And appreciate your time. It's the most important asset we have. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.